Moses Itauma is back in the ring this Saturday, 28th of March, against the American Jermaine Franklin. And today on the show, me and my bro Enzo are going to break this fight down. We're going to talk about how Moses Itauma is going to approach this fight. We're going to give you our predictions, and we're going to tell you what we believe is going to happen in this fight. This is the first episode of the Boxing Giants podcast, and I've got Enzo in the building. Enzo, how are you doing today, my brother?
Yeah, Brad, man. Thank you for having me on the show, bro. You're a bit of a madman having Enzo, the realest of the game, on your show. The first ever episode of the Boxing Giants. Listen, man, I appreciate you having me on the show, and I appreciate being the first ever guest, man. It's an honor, man. I appreciate it. And yeah, man, we're going to break down this fight coming up on Saturday. Moses Itauma back in the ring after a slight-ish, longish layoff. Yeah. He only had 3 rounds in 2025.
And there was an injury, wasn't there? So they had to push it back.
There was an injury there. They had to delay the fight, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's going to be a very interesting fight coming up this Saturday. We're going to see how Moses Itauma is going to fare. But, yeah, we're going to break it all down for the people. Anyway, man. Thanks for having me.
I think, absolutely. Thank you for coming on, bro. I really appreciate it. I think the most important thing to talk about, well, one of the most important things, and I think, first of all, the whole world of boxing, everybody in the heavyweight division is talking about Moses Itauma being the future of the heavyweight division. What do you think about that? From what you've seen, from what we've seen from him, right, in the ring against someone like Dillian Whyte, what do you think Moses Itauma can achieve in boxing?
Yeah, you see, when people talk about, like, what you say, like the future star, right, the future king of the heavyweight division, there's certain features, there's certain attributes in a fighter that I look for. Has the fighter got the boxing skills? Itauma's got the boxing skills. Are they marketable? He's very marketable, and he's got that aura about him. You can definitely market him like the way you marketed Anthony Joshua. He's not as outspoken as Joshua was early on. Do you know what I mean? Joshua was actually outside. Moses Itauma is a bit more of an introvert. He's not really outside. I look at his social media. He's not really engaging that much with the fans, but he therefore has all the attributes to be a star in the heavyweight division for sure.
Absolutely. I think you're right. I think he's got the star, in terms of the fighting ability, because most of the time you have to get knockouts in the heavyweight division for people to follow you, and we can see Mike Tyson did that his whole career, right? And then you have to have the personality aspect as well. I think Moses Itauma is missing something, which is a little bit of the personality, coming out of his shell, being flamboyant, and puffing off his chest a little bit more. I don't think he's doing that yet, but maybe he's still young, right? So maybe he'll grow into the character of showing people exactly who he is and what he can what he can show. So I think it'll be interesting to see how he develops as a fighter, but also as a character, because the heavyweight division needs a character. You see Tyson Fury, for example, he's a character, and that's why lots of people follow him. Joshua, he had the marketability, he had the casual fans following him, the women, things like that. It brings a lot of notoriety to boxing and to that fighter. So I think Itauma, his fighting ability definitely puts him up there in terms of being very marketable. But I think he's got to work on his personality a little bit. But he's still young, as I said. And I think he's gonna get there. But look, bro, we have to talk about this fight, because a lot of people are picking Itauma to win this fight convincingly, right? Because he's the favorite, and it's happening in the UK and so forth. Jermaine Franklin is coming from the US. We've seen him here against Dillian Whyte, against Anthony Joshua. People would argue that he actually beat Dillian Whyte. Now, I think it's a contentious decision. I think it could have gone both ways. They decided to give it to Dillian Whyte. Fair enough. He performed really well against Anthony Joshua as well. So he's got some credit in the bank. But how do you think Itauma would, approach this fight? And how do you think Franklin will approach this fight?
Listen, there's a reason why Uncle Frank, aka Frank Warren, and Queensbury Promotions chose Jermaine Franklin, right? For me, Jermaine Franklin is basically Dillian Whyte 2.0. Yeah, he's just a bit younger. I think Jermaine Franklin is 32 years of age.
Yeah.
Dillian Whyte is like 36, whatever, yeah? But if you look at the fighters that were meant to fight Moses Itauma, like a Frank Sanchez, right, for the IBF Eliminator, Frank Warren was like, no, we're not fighting Frank Sanchez. Then they offered him Richard Torres. They were like, no, we don't want Torres.
Yeah.
Turn that down. They was hearing something about Gassiev. Oh, no Gassiev. Yeah, the reason why they turned those fighters down, because those fighters are a bit more dynamic. Those fighters, their punch output are a little bit more higher than Jermaine Franklin. Jermaine Franklin, he's averaging, I don't know, about 20 punches per round or something like that. So he's got a very low output in terms of his punch stats here. And also, he doesn't take no risks. You know what I mean? Jermaine Franklin, look, he's solid, like you said at the start, Anthony Joshua, when he fought Anthony Joshua, he was good. When he fought against Dillian White, he was good also. But how much risk did he take against these fighters?
Not much.
He didn't really take that risk. He didn't really put himself in a position where he can get knocked out. That's why he's never been knocked out. But his output is very low. Mosai Itauma, what is his best attributes? Speed, precision, timing, foot speed, and hand speed. These are not and power. Disaster.
Power as well. Yeah.
Disaster for Jermaine Franklin. And also what we need to remember, when Jermaine Franklin fought against Joshua and Dillian White, he was much younger. Now he's put on more weight. He's heavier. He's more even slower than before. He's lethargic.
He's earned a little bit of money as well.
That's what I'm trying to say. So he's not gonna be able, to basically for him to get to Itauma, he needs the foot speed to close the distance, get into range to let his shots go. Mosai Itauma is not even gonna allow him to do that because he's got a greater foot speed, the greater timing, better precision and accuracy. So for me, Mosai Itauma, listen, man, I know we're going to do the prediction here, but it's going to be like taking lamb to slaughter in this fight. It's going to be basically like the Dillian White fight, but it might take 2 or 3 rounds, but it's going to be the same result.
Okay. Look, I think you make some great points there. You sort of talk about Mosai Itauma's strengths and, Franklin's sort of mentality coming into this fight. I think something to always take into consideration is the mental aspect of things. And I always talk about, not I, but people in boxing talk about, boxing being 80% or maybe 70% mental and then the rest being physical. And I think Mosai Itauma knows that he's the favorite, right? He knows that everybody is banking on him to do this job. I watched the face-off that I think it was Ade that did the face-off, if I'm correct. And Mosai Itauma actually admits that he thinks this fight is going to go a bit more longer than maybe the Dillian White fight because he's expecting Franklin to be very resolute, very resilient, and looking to take his chances as well. Do you think that Mosai Itauma would go for the knockout straight away, or do you think he's going to take his time to break Franklin down before he takes him out?
I think it's going to depend on the approach from Franklin. It depends how Franklin himself approaches this fight. If Franklin comes out there and decides to actually take the risk, he's going to get knocked out quicker. Do you know what I mean? Because like I said, he hasn't got the speed, the hand speed, nor the foot speed to actually compete with Itauma. He hasn't got the boxing ability because look, for Franklin to get to Mosai Itauma, he needs to close the distance. We know he won't be able. He's not going to be able to do that. He's too heavy.
He's not going to win the fight on the outside. He has to close the distance.
He won't be able to. And what happens when you try and close the distance against Itauma? We saw Mike Balogun try to do it. All Mosai Itauma did, take a step back, 2 steps back, counted him with the left and knocked him the F out. Do you know what I mean? So Mosai Itauma, I think when he says these fights going to go long, we need to think what's long for Mosai Itauma, because in 2025, he had 3 rounds under 5 minutes. So for him, long means maybe 4 rounds. You know what I mean? So, I think Mosai Itauma is going to approach this fight with a mentality that he wants to get more rounds. I think his coach, Ben Davison, is going to tell him, look, we need more rounds, We know you can finish it quick, but if you can get a couple of rounds in there just to build yourself up, do it. But if the opportunity presents itself for you to get him out of there quicker, go ahead and do it too.
I think, I take your point there. I think Itauma, although he knows that he's probably better, and he is better in every single department than Franklin, in my opinion. I think Franklin is a steady Eddie. Like in football, we can talk about certain players being steady Eddie. Like they're not great at a certain aspect of the game, but they're not very bad at a certain. They're really mid-level sort of player in football. And I think when we look at boxing, you can say Franklin is such fighter, right? He hasn't got the best jab in the division. He hasn't got the best right hand in the division. He hasn't got the best footwork.
Yeah.
You know, he hasn't got the best chin, but he's decent in every department. Moses Itauma has got elite level hand speed, right? Elite level power. I mean, at least so far as we can see how many times he's knocked people out, we can say that he's got power, right? We can say that he's got really good boxing IQ, and he's a southpaw. And southpaws are just a nightmare to fight. Like literally, they are just an absolute nightmare for anyone to fight. So Itauma has got the advantage in every single department, but I think that he would be a little bit circumspect in the beginning, because Franklin, as much as, you know, we talk about him, or you mentioned that he's going to be like a lamb to the slaughter, Itauma would still know that you just can't rush in there and try and take a guy out that's never been knocked out before. Although he's not taking the risks, he has the heart to be able to do something to Itauma. So I think Itauma will be circumspect in the beginning. But as time goes on in this fight, and you know, I've been playing this in my head over and over again. I feel like as time goes on in this fight, Itauma will smell something and he will think, you know what, this guy is there for the taking. And I'm going to take this guy out. And I'm going to take him out in a devastating fashion. And I think, you know, Itauma will put that in his head. But of course, you mentioned there, Ben Davison would want Itauma to work on something. You know, I, for some time, have criticized Itauma. Like, I've said that, you know, look, people are saying that he should fight Usyk. I'm thinking it's way too early for that. I feel like we need to see him in a fight where he is behind on a scorecard and then, you know, changes the trajectory of the fight, because that is what makes a great fighter separate to an elite fighter, someone that can change, you know, the trajectory of a fight. Like Usyk, right? He, in that Fury fight, he was sort of losing the rounds in the middle rounds. And then Usyk found something somewhere and changed that fight. And we saw what happened in the 9th round. So we need to see Itauma do things like that, right? Change the trajectory of the fight. We need to see him sort of dominate his opponent, which he's done. But when he's hit on the chin, would he be able to take it? When he's, you know, knocked down and he gets up, will he still have his head in the game? Because sometimes, you know, when your legs are gone, are you able to, you know, run around the ring and get your legs back before you go again? So I think there's a few things that we still need to know about Itauma to be 100% sure that he is what we say he is. But do you think in this fight that Franklin has got the ability to test Itauma in any way at all? Do you think that could happen?
Look, it's a heavyweight division, right? And anything can happen. You know what I mean? He only takes one punch, you know?
One shot and then it's done.
One shot, and one shot can change the whole dynamic of the fight. Like, so we're not gonna sit here and slaughter Franklin and completely disrespect him. No, that's not what we're trying to do. That's not what personally I'm trying to do. I'm just being realistic. See, Franklin, his last KO or TKO was back in 2022. So 4 years ago, he got a TKO, right? His other wins have been unanimous decision and a retirement. So clearly the power is not there for him. The only avenue in which I can see Franklin getting a victory or having some success is if he makes this fight a war of attrition.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If he can get Itauma to a position where it becomes a slugfest, right? It becomes a fight where Itauma now has to be tested in terms of his endurance, his cardio, his fitness, because in 2025 he only had 3 rounds under 5 minutes because he was just knocking everyone out. So
that's what I was saying. That's what I'm saying.
If Franklin can somehow exploit the lack of activity from Itauma, because 2 fights for a guy his age, if we compare it to a Joshua, even going back as far as Mike Tyson, he's not fighting enough. He's not. I don't know. Maybe these kids are now getting paid too much money that they can just fight once a year and chill for 10 years. But if Franklin can make it a war of attrition, if he can take Itauma into those deep waters late on and test his cardio, then maybe through fatigue. Well, I mean, when I say fatigue, I mean most Itauma getting fatigued and tired. Maybe Franklin can find success and he can land something. Not powerful. He doesn't take a powerful shot, but he can maybe land something to wobble Moisa Itauma, and maybe he can finish it. That is the only way. It's only fitness. If Moisa Itauma's fitness doesn't hold up, That's the only way I see Franklin having any success in this fight. I'm just keeping it real. I'm just being honest. Other than that, I'm looking at all the other attributes that both fighters have. Plus, the youth is in Mo Itoma's side.
Yeah. I agree. I think, look, and that's why it's very fascinating to break this fight down, because we're not looking at a fighter that is finished already, like in Franklin, right?
No.
When Itauma was fighting Dillian Whyte, I don't think anybody picked Dillian Whyte to win. I sort of give Dillian Whyte a bit more chance as the fight got closer, because we saw Dillian Whyte lose weight and it looked like he was serious, and he was, you saw the press conferences and the interviews that Dillian Whyte did. He looked like, he wasn't going to lay down.
But Bright, I don't mean to stop you, but Dillian Whyte could be very deceiving. Remember when Dillian Whyte fought against Tyson Fury? On the lead up, he looked serious, right? He looked, I'm serious.
He did.
Then he went out there, he poured in a stinker. You know what I mean? Terrible. He stank the place and he got knocked out. He was terrible. So terrible. I like Dillian Whyte when he's not serious.
Yeah.
That's when he performs better. When he's serious, I know these guys, he's serious for the cameras, but behind the scenes, obviously, he wasn't fit to fight Itauma. Yeah. You can tell he just came in for the 2 million.
Yeah.
5 million, however much you got. You know what I mean? So for Dillian Whyte, man. Listen.
I agree. Yeah. I definitely agree with that. So
he let us down, man.
He did. Because I was expecting Dillian to do more. But also, we got to give Itauma credit, because maybe he didn't let Dillian do the things that he wanted to do. Now, after the fight, people said that Dillian was injured. I heard that his ankle he's got some issues with the ankle. Look, it doesn't matter. You got in there,
don't matter.
And you got bashed up, you got stopped. So that is what it is.
We don't want to hear
I was expecting, we don't want to hear the excuses, because I think it's just lame and, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. But I was expecting Dillian to take Itauma to a place where it tests him, and he wasn't able to do that. Yes, guys, so this is our breakdown for Moji Itauma versus Jermaine Franklin. I want you guys to get in the comment section. Let us know what you thought about it. Who are you picking to win this fight, and what round are you picking them to win? Enzo, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And guys, don't forget, go and subscribe to my brother Enzo's channel, EMGM Sports, on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one.
Peace out.